Welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This is the place where we help entrepreneurs expand their business, build their wealth, and generate passive income. I'm your host, Brian Beers, an entrepreneur who's on a mission to inspire growth from everyone around me. Remember that you need to take the actions others won't, and you can live the life that others don't. Please be sure to check out my weekly newsletter that now drops every Thursday. It includes one quote, one tweet, one podcast recommendation, plus some business and investing insight from me. It's short and it's sweet. My goal is to provide you with just a couple gold nuggets to help inspire your growth. Go to brianbeers.com to subscribe. Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to bring you Kim Moreno. Kim is the Director of Franchise Development for Shrunk 3D, the world's first and only 3D scanning booth. So we're going to learn all about this. So welcome to the show, Kim.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
All right. So I probably butchered that. So describe Shrunk 3D. So I know it's not, this is, audio and just us talking obviously for video, but describe to us Shrunk 3D. Like what is it?
Well, Brian, you did a great job. Basically, Shrunk 3D is a mobile 3D scanning studio franchise. Customers will go into the booth and within a third of a second, their entire picture is taken, all 365 degrees, head to toe, everything. There's 95 cameras that are used to capture a perfect high def replication of the person or pet or thing that's being scanned inside. All those images are then uploaded by our corporate team, and they're used to create these incredible statues that make really wonderful keepsakes of cherished moments.
And so how big do the statues, how big are they?
They're available in prices that fit pretty much any budget. They start at around 3 inches tall and go up to 12 inches tall. So there's something for everyone.
Okay, awesome. So if a franchisee buys, it's a booth, right? So we got like a trailer that they're pulling. And then so walk through like how do they make money? Like what kind of events do they do? Where do they go?
The most successful franchisees are spending a lot of their time getting involved in their communities. They're going to go to media day for the football team. They're going to go to marching band fundraisers. They're going to show up at cheerleading competitions, events within their community where there are lots of kids dressed up in costumes that parents want to commemorate that memory for. Those are what's going to make the best statue. Showing up at the farmer's market is great, but you're going to get a lot of people who are there shopping for expensive fruit. They're not looking for a custom statue of themselves at that time. So our most successful franchisees are the ones who are creative within their communities, finding those events that are going to be the best to their bottom line. They'll also be setting up their own pop-ups, like it's Halloween coming up soon.
Yep.
A perfect opportunity would be reach out to the local HOA. Let them know, hey, we're going to park our booth at your clubhouse on a Friday night from 5 to 7. We'll have candy for the kids. Come trick-or-treating and get your scan taken. Because everyone spends so much time and effort on their Halloween costume. What? For the flat picture that lives in your phone and lives on social media and on the wall. That's not what we're doing here. These are high def custom statues that become part of your home decor, which really, when the house is burning down, these are the first things you're grabbing.
Got it. So the Halloween high school, the other ones you talked about is, getting involved in the military when loved ones are going or coming, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Shrunk 3D has a national contract with Army and Air Force. All franchisees are invited into their local base to participate in special events like what you said. When you're a mom and you're saying bye to your kid and you don't know when they're coming back, having this statue means so much. And as a franchisee, the opportunity to provide that statue is really what we're going after here. We heard stories of kids who take statues of their parents in their school backpack every day.
Oh, it's cute. So what are they, talk to me a little bit about the pricing. So you said there's like 3 different sizes. What was the shortest one again? 3 inches, 2 inches?
3 inches is available at retail for about $90. And that 12-inch statue is available at retail for about $300. But you can buy statues in every inch interval, and there's prices through the gamut.
Yep. So it's varied. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's more to size, not necessarily like how complicated the statue is. Yep.
Now there is a small upcharge for things like Gosh, if you're doing a fundraiser for the local marching band and some kid comes in with his giant tuba, there is an upcharge
Yeah.
for
Okay. If
cleaning
it's
that
something.
whole instrument.
Yep. Okay. So then for the franchisees, so the to talk about some of the like the franchisees that you have already, because it's a new franchise. Just for perspective, how big is it now? How many franchisees do you have?
We've got 22 franchisees for 32 territories.
Yep. Okay.
And gosh, they run the gamut. Some of these guys are coming from a tech background. Some are really heavy into engineering. Others, real estate agents. They see the value of being connected within their community. We've got some people who are near retirement age and are just looking for their second act. Because this franchise concept is so turnkey, corporate takes care of everything on the back end. Franchisees only need to go to events and find events and market for those events. It is not a difficult position to be put into.
Okay. So are most of the franchisees in this kind of like a part-time gig for them?
Well, that's an interesting part. Some are. Some are still keeping their full-time job. They're doing this as a side hustle. And we've got some incredible success stories that paint that picture. But corporate really wants more. They want to get rid of those weekend warriors.
Okay.
There are so many people in your community who will benefit from having these statues available to them. And if you're only going out 5% of your time, that's leaving a lot of underserved people.
Yep. So then how does the franchisor help with people to, I don't know, figure out these events and like, because a lot of it's kind of creative of like, you start listing these things out and they're like, oh, that makes sense, right?
Right.
Talk to me about like, how do they go assist in helping them go and find these leads? Because it's not really like a marketing thing. Like, I don't think people are like searching for this and they're coming, right? It's more outbound, like you going to them, showing them what it is, and then them kind of, obviously inviting you to the event. So how does the franchisor assist in that process?
Yeah. So Brian, it is funny you said that, that people aren't really searching this out, but they are definitely starting to. Now that we have a bigger presence on social media, we've got those 22 franchisees, it is definitely starting to grow, where franchisees are seeing people reach out to them to schedule.
To invite them to something. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
But once a franchisee comes into the system, we've got a business development specialist who's going to help them make the most of their Facebook event page, just to find what's going on in their local community and how we can better enhance that event by being a part of it. Yep. In addition, we also have Slack channels for all the franchisees to be a part of, where they're going to share best practices. What event did I do last weekend that was successful? What event did I go to that was not successful? And maybe you can avoid having that same pitfall. But everyone is in this together, and they're all these boats are going to help raise the tide.
Okay. Have you? So talk to me about let's back up a little bit. How was the company founded? Talk about the leadership team, how this whole thing hatched. I think it's a pretty good story. I remember hearing it before. So.
It's a great story. This is a product of Micah and his father playing around, figuring how do they make the most of their pictures and how can they create this as a tangible 3D item. They then partnered with Zach Peterson, and the two of them together started doing this in Zach's garage. They used downspouts, taught their families how to weld things to make this work, brought it around in downtown Charleston, and saw there was definitely a market for this. People were coming up to them. They scanned at parades for holidays, and they got a lot of letters from their HOA saying, what are you doing here? You can't have a business here, which then resulted them to think a little bigger. They went to one of their first trade shows and quickly had that relationship with Army and Air Force, who said, we want you on our base. You got to come to us. A couple weeks later, they heard from 30 other bases nationwide. You've got to travel across country. We want you. Zach has a background in franchising from his family franchises. He was once a franchisee himself in a different sector. And he said the best way that we can service all of these bases nationwide, franchising. Shortly after that, they found our company, Franchise Fastlane, and that kind of started the whole ball rolling.
Yep. Okay. And for those who don't know, like what does Franchise Fastlane do? Sometimes people get confused and like who you're talking to and what they do. So what does Franchise Fastlane do, and how do you support franchisees and franchisors?
That's a great question. And especially when you're looking at a very small emerging brand like Shrunk 3D. These guys are excellent. They are tech founders. They are all about securities, and they know everything going on in the software development world. don't know so much about franchise development though. So they outsource that to a company like Franchise Fastlane. We are the nation's largest franchise sales organization, and we have processes in place that help candidates go through the system to discover, is Shrunk 3D the right fit for me?
Yep. Okay. What does that process look like for those who don't know or haven't been through it?
Yeah, sure. So it's 3 scheduled calls and then an in-person meeting. The first call is just an introduction where we're going to get to know each other. I'm going to ask them some questions about their goals for business ownership, just to make sure we think Shrunk 3D is going to be a good fit for them. After that, we have a unit economics call where we dive deep into the financial aspect of the business. We look at current franchisees, what their numbers are like, and we build a full 1-year pro forma of what their first year in business might look like. After that, candidates get invited to participate in weekly leadership calls with my founders, Zach and Micah, and our brand president, Tom Hodgson. They'll also get a chance to connect with current franchisees and ask them questions about their specific business. That validation process, most candidates feel is the best part of the process.
Yep.
After that, we look at franchise disclosure document. We review the big contract that they would sign if they become a franchisee. We map out their perfect territory. And if they're like 90% sure that they want to move forward, we invite them to come on down to Charleston, see these booths in action, get a statue made themselves, and hopefully that statue then becomes their focal point in their booth to show other customers when they're a franchisee.
Yep. Fun. So let's talk about a little bit about the number side of it. So what does it cost to start up, I guess, one territory for Shrunk 3D?
One territory on the low end is about $172,000, which includes the franchise fee, the cost of the booth, and a couple other ancillary things that we might not be thinking about when you're like, I can definitely do this business, but we want to make sure there are no hidden costs for the candidate. On the high end, it'll be about $250,000. And that big swing is really just whether or not the candidate already has a truck or SUV that can haul the trailer. It only weighs about 3,500 pounds, so my Camry can't do it, but my husband's Ford Explorer can.
Yep. Okay. So 172, 250, something in that range to get started. And I know in the franchise disclosure document, there's not enough data on the financials to talk about performance. So your 22 existing franchisees, like, talk about how did those people, like, what process did they go through to determine that this would be a good investment for them? Because you couldn't tell them how much money they can make, but obviously they had confidence in it. So what did they do, and how can other people, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So what we do have in our item 19 is our average sale is about $280. Average gross profit gross profit margin for the franchisee is about 60%, a little bit greater than 60%. So this business has great margins. Every one of my franchisees saw this as a huge opportunity to get in on the ground floor of an industry disruptor. They are all true entrepreneurs who don't necessarily want the playbook. If you do 1, 2, 3, you're going to have XYZ results. They know that if you give them a challenge, they're going to succeed. And they see these as an awesome opportunity because they want them themselves. They've got kids going through where they remember what it was like having kids in their first tutu or at their first baseball game. Those are the memories that they wish they had statues of. Coming in at the ground floor, you get nice, big, juicy territories, and there is no competition in this space. You are the only show in town. It's a really compelling statement for a lot of our franchisees.
Yep. Okay. So they see that vision, and then so they're on these validation calls, potential franchisees, right? So it's a group call. It's existing. One of your 22 franchisees is up there talking about their experience. And so will they share some of their numbers in terms of, like, I did X, Y, V events and we sold X statues, and like, can you give us any idea of, like, a typical, or not a typical, but like the different ranges of events that they could go to, the Halloween HOA, the high school thing, and like, obviously I'm sure a ton of people show interest in it, but then, how many of them are going to spend $225 there. So, like,
so that's like the average sale to get one stand in a statue is about $130. So it's not a huge investment. And if it's class picture day last week, and I just bought my kids class pictures and spent $130 on like 2 pictures, and they're not even smiling.
Yeah.
And that's that flat picture that's just going to live in a frame.
Yep.
These are a little bit more substantial than that. But what they will hear on those validation calls, one of our franchisees went to, in their first year of business, they were doing this very, very part-time. They did only 18 events in their first year. So that's about one every other weekend, a little bit less. They sold almost 1,000 statues in that first year. They're averaging about 50 statues every time they move their booth.
Okay.
They will validate that story to be true. Another candidate went to, with one email, they scheduled a picture day with a 7 and 8-year-old recreational football group in their community. 52 statues in one afternoon. And if we're just thinking, if each of those kids' statues is about 135, they're keeping about 60% of every one of those. It's not a bad little afternoon.
Yep. That'd be about like $4,000 of gross profit. And obviously they have other expenses after that, but okay. And yeah, I mean, it seems that this is the type of business, it's like the hustle business. Like you said, the people who go out and they build in the community and they can go to events, a couple times a week, right? You go into two events a week, 100 events a year, you're going to do a whole lot more than the person does 18 events.
That's very true. And Brian, when you're keeping 60% to the bottom line, you can afford to hire some part-time workers, pay them an hourly wage and give them some commission towards sales that they make. And you can be a little bit more part-time than going to
So some franchisees are doing that. Maybe they're doing the sales, but then they got somebody else who's like actually going to the events and spending the time, for 3 hours or whatever it is in the booth.
That's right.
So this thing's pretty technical, right? So it's this booth. You walk in, I seen pictures, right? It's like 1 million cameras all around them.
Only 95 cameras.
95 cameras. But talking about like the maintenance of this thing, like, I'd be concerned someone's not technical, this camera goes down, like the thing's not working, you got this line of people. Like, talk to me about like, what does that look like for the franchisees and how they go about, I guess, learning how to troubleshoot and fix, like kind of on the spot.
Yeah. So, that's never happened before where there's the customers outside and something goes down and they're panicking.
Freaking out. Yeah.
My founders are software engineers who come from a long history of building things like this, and they did not want to become a tech support group. So instead, they built this to be as plug and play as possible. Part of training includes how to troubleshoot the booth. All of the cameras are easy daisy chained to each other. You can check the power supply for each line, make sure that it's up and running. As many as 10 cameras can go down at any given time, and it does not affect the quality of the print.
Okay, so there's a lot of redundancy.
A lot of redundancies here.
So they can, before they go out, they can like run a test or whatever, see everything's working, and then they're good to go. And I think you described too, they're pretty easy to replace, and they have some extra cameras. So if something does go down, they just plug and play and then get a new camera back, right?
That's exactly right.
But I can imagine over time, I mean, that they probably do require, some sort of maintenance to these things.
Any technology need to be changed on the trailer. That's the only maintenance that I've heard of so far.
Yep. Okay. How long does it take to get the statues?
That's a great question. We're currently averaging about 10 days from the time the picture is taken to the time the customer receives it in the mail. Okay. We do like to advertise that it's 4 full weeks, though, just because we want to under promise and over deliver on that. Corporate standard is going to be 4 weeks.
Yep. And for just like to reiterate that the franchisee goes, they help click the button, and then they're done, right? So from there, the franchisor, you've got the team of these graphic designers, using CAD or whatever they're doing, to then design these things, print these things, ship these things, right? And the franchisee has, I'm sure there's email communication automated to the customer to know, hey, it's on your way. I'd assume.
But franchisee is not handling that. That is all taken care of.
The customer service, like if they're, where's my statue, or hey, this thing broke, or like all to the franchisor. Like where does the franchisee come in and like the customer service support side of it post sale?
So that's right, though. As it goes through production, customers going to receive different emails letting them know, thank you for your order. We've received your order. It's entered the production queue. Your order is shipped. Here's tracking. Kind of like the Domino's pizza tracker, but this is the Shrunk 3D statue tracker.
Yep.
As far as customer service goes, if somebody asks the franchisee, hey, where is my statue? They can check the portal at any time and they can see exactly where it is in production. They can even give them an estimate of it hasn't shipped yet. It's anticipated to ship on Wednesday or whatever the case is. If there is a customer service issue where, let's just say, a statue arrived and its little arm is broken off, it doesn't usually happen, but it could happen. Customer will will send a picture. Hey, this is what we've received. This isn't right. The color is not right. It doesn't look like me, whatever it is. Arm is broken. Franchisee is going to see that picture. They'll let corporate know that something's gone wrong. It's not right. Corporate will then reprint that statue at no cost to the franchisee. Of course, if it's something like, this really does look like the person, but the person says this doesn't look like them, I think in our entire almost 3 years of franchising, of being in business, we've had less. We can count on one hand how many customers have made.
Yeah, just the weirdos.
I think we always think that they just want a second statue printed.
Yeah, you're like, all right, ship us that one back, and then we'll ship you another one.
Exactly, and we never get it back.
There you go. So 10 days, is the goal to lower that? Like, is it possible, or is it more of just like a production line issue?
I mean, as the improvements with AI get better and better, our designers are going to be able to move faster and faster.
Okay, because it's their work of designing these statues. And I think you described, like, if they're holding something like a golf club or something very thin, how, like, if they don't think it'll print right, they're going to work to kind of fatten up, for the printing purposes, that thin thing, or the hat, or like whatever it is. So it sounds like, from what you described to me, the designers take a ton of work into designing this thing so that it will print and it will last and it will not break, which is great. I mean, that's what you want, like a high, you're paying
for
a premium for something, and you want high quality in return, and not something that feels like super chintzy.
Right. Absolutely. Especially people who have tattoos, there's special detail to make sure every tattoo is high quality and pops on the statue.
Yep. They do Comic-Con festivals.
Oh, do we do Comic-Con festivals? That will be, if a franchisee has a Comic-Con in their area, that will be their number one.
A monster event. Here in Philly, we got the Mummers Parade every, January 1st. And so that was always, a good show.
The costumes, yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. What are some of the biggest challenges you think the franchisees face now, or that they're working through?
That's a great question. Biggest challenge is going to be, why do I need this? They hear it from customers all the time. This is something cool, but why do I need this? And the real question is, or the real answer is, you don't need this. This isn't something that is required to maintain your everyday life, but it definitely does enhance it. And if any of the listeners out there have ever lost somebody who meant a lot to them, sometimes the pictures and the things in your phone don't live up to the memory of who that person was. I always get a little personal, but my father left a little too early, and he loved guitars. If I had a statue of him holding his guitar, looking so happy, it would be my favorite thing in the house. And I've got 2 kids who live here. It's just, I don't know. It's not something you need. It's definitely something you want, but oh man, when you get it in your hands, it is the greatest thing you've got.
Yeah. And even when you have these photos, right, where you're still like, they're like in your phone, you don't really see them unless you're like proactively going to look for them. Then you got to scroll through all these like other things to like find these memories. And, versus you have, the picture or the statue, right, of like your kid and their dog, right? Or
part of the home decor. You see it every day. It's always on the mantle. And it's just a constant reminder of your life and your life story.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for like people hearing this for me for the first time, when I heard about this, I was like, it took a while to like connect it, right? And I think that's like part of it, because like you said, it's industry disruptor. Nobody's doing this. Like nobody has this thing. So like even for me, I was like, what the hell is this thing? Like why would I even do this? But then like, obviously we've talked multiple times, and I've started to see these statues. I've felt them, feel them, like on at these different events, and it is really really cool, and I could totally see the value, especially if I've got young kids. I got a 2-year-old and an almost 7-year-old, and
they're cute. Now is the time to scan.
Memories, and then if it was
multiple events throughout the years, right? And it became like a thing. Then you have like, as your kids grow up, these different statues. And so anyway, I think it's cool. And obviously for the right franchisee who wants to go out and like build their community and kind of make people smile with this thing, I think that's what it is.
Well, Brian, we'll get a franchisee in Philly.
Yeah, do you have anybody in Philly? Get them coming here. Trying to think of any other questions for you, but I think that's good. I think you did an excellent job trying to describe this. So if you're listening, just Google Shrunk 3D. You can see all these statues. Instagram. I think they're probably always posting up stuff. And if you want to learn more or interested, just shoot me a message, or if you reach out to Shrunk 3D, just let them know you heard about it here, and happy to get you connected and learn more. So thanks again, Kim, for coming on and sharing the story.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'll talk to you.
That's all we got for this episode with the Business with Beers podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is to rate the show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on your preferred social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find all my links at brianbeers.com. Please just share the podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And until next time, remember to take the actions others won't, to live the life that others don't.